there are certain groups of politicians who are secretly trying to change the demographic makeup of the United States so that the United States becomes more black and more brown. Because people of European ancestry are 16% of the world's population, which means that the world is very black and very brown. What percentage of Americans do you think support this? Just like in your minds, like think, like, huh?
We'll never are gonna know what's really going on. All we can do is just, you know, stand there, shoot, or stand there and vote.
It seems to me that we only call it a conspiracy if we don't think it's true, right? So it's an assumption, or it's a theory, or it's a conclusion that you've come to.
And they say, like, if you allow to come Venezuelans, they will become citizens, they will vote against, and then now that was like the right wing, and now we have the left wing in the government, and they were right. So now they have the chance to win the next elections because they're like, they're becoming strong with that narrative. So I'm just seeing the potential of the narrative.
The difference between fiction and reality.
Fiction and reality.
It's that fiction must make sense. So I think we have this need to make sense of the things that are seen in the world. As Camila's friend told, oh, let's connect the dots.
Iraq has seen migration in phases.
So there's a great replacement theory or hypothesis. The way this is seen in the United States is that this thesis or way of seeing the world is rooted in a racist trope. And the racist trope is related to this idea that white people, the more advanced, the more elevated cultures, should always be afraid of less advanced cultures taking over. So you always want to be on the lookout for people who are coming behind, who are going to really move in and somehow take power. And you don't want that, because those people, black and brown people, generally speaking, are not seen as advanced as people who are white, okay? So the idea is that there's a conspiracy happening related to our immigration policies. The conspiracy is that there are certain groups of politicians who are secretly trying to change the demographic makeup of the United States so that the United States becomes more black and more brown. Because these particular group of politicians know, or they think, that support for them and their policies mostly comes or is going to come from black and brown people, and especially black and brown immigrants. So if we can bring more black and brown people in the United States, and those black and brown people support my policies and the things that I represent and who I am, and therefore my power, then I should change the makeup of the United States, especially if I'm white and I'm conservative, because I'm increasingly in minority status. Okay, so the great replacement theory is rooted in conspiracy that this is going on. And in the United States, it's going on the part of the Democratic Party and liberals. Okay, so if you look at this, 43% of the votes for Biden in 2020 came from black, Hispanic, and Asian voters. Like that means that's a lot of people, that's a lot of votes. And Biden needs more votes in order to win. And so the Democratic Party should rally around black people and brown people who are more likely to vote for the Democratic Party. So if we can bring more of them into the United States, this would be really good. So secretly, remember, it's a conspiracy. So secretly, this is what's behind the immigration policy. So when you think about Mexico and the immigration crisis at our borders and immigrants coming from the Middle East and who we let in this country, people behind the scenes are conspiratorially moving things around, changing the levers so that this happens. This is a quote from a I didn't even put the name up there because it doesn't matter. But Biden intentionally let Afghanistan fall. Let it happen so that we want all these Afghans to come to the United States. Now, this is being stated, these kinds of things, more and more on mainstream media, not just locked away in the dark corners of the dark web, but on mainstream media, people on talk shows and people talking back and forth and saying these things. That's what this came from. So here's the racial makeup. If you think just the planet, people of European ancestry are 16% of the world's population. Some of these Latinos are naturally going to be white, but people of European ancestry primarily are 16% of the population, which means that the world is very black and very brown. And it will continue to get more black and brown because people who are white, generally speaking, except in certain areas, generally speaking, have very low birth rates. Okay? So there's a thing thinking about this. Okay, go to the next one. This is not a new thing. This is a cartoon from 1881 in the United States. There have always been these ideas of that politicians are going to let immigrants into the countries who will support those politicians. So just in the United States, do you have any idea? That's a monkey. It's a chimpanzee, gorilla, monkey, kind of a mix of them. Do you have any idea who that represents in the U.S. in 1881? Who that would be? What immigrant group? Yeah, it's the Irish, right? Yeah. Because here it's the Irish world, right? Yeah. So this is how the Irish were. Go to the next one. Irish American dynamite skunk. Here, this is Uncle Sam. This is Teddy Roosevelt. These are the rats, the immigrants from Italy, and they were perceived to be supporting of certain presidential candidates in the United States. But the immigrants from Italy are a bad idea if you're not part of that political party. So what we're talking about with the great replacement theory, and now that I've said it, now that you're aware of this, if you haven't heard it before, you're going to hear it more and more. 1903, this was a poll that was done here in the United States just recently. And the demographic makeup is not natural, but it's been motivated by progressive liberals who are actively trying to leverage their power by replacing conservative white voters with black and brown immigrants and residents who will vote for them and their political parties. This is big. So think in your minds, like, how many Americans support this? Like, what's your sense? How many? What percentage of Americans do you think support this? Just like in your minds, like think, like, huh? So look at Republicans. That's 2 out of 3 people who vote Republican. 2 out of 3. Like you think of the implications of this. If this is happening, what it means. And Democrats and independents, even with Democrats, it's 1 out of 3. So given your sociological addresses, okay, and what you see, first off, you think about this thesis that there's a whole sector of American politicians who are secretly organizing American life to change the demographic makeup of the United States. Like, just what off the top of your head comes to mind from what you see from where you live?
Yeah, like what comes up to my mind for a person who is working in the military, and the military is usually, like Clausewitz said, politics done by other means. And what is our take on politicians? Like, we've all seen House of Cards, right? And this is also sometimes what we in the military and in mainstream Polish society perceive, that we will never are going to know what's really going on. All we can do is just, stand there, shoot, or stand there and vote.
So even in the military, there's this idea of like that you never know what's going on with politicians.
I mean, of course, not everybody thinks like that,
Yeah.
but that's pretty popular among especially soldiers of lower ranks.
Yeah, okay.
So that is like, you know, you never know what's really going on up there.
So that means that, and what you're saying is true in Poland, that means like kind of anything could be a conspiracy. Anything could be happening. So even something like this, that, you know, the Biden team and Democrats are secretly saying like, hey, we don't like these conservative white Christians. So here's what we do. We can't change their thinking. But what if we bring all these black people from Africa and Asian people from Southeast Asia and Latinos and Mexicans from Mexico and people from the Middle East and Muslims from the Middle East. And like, what if we bring them in and then we'll like somehow convert them to our side? That can make sense to people since they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in Poland actually we do have this refugee, not really crisis, but a huge influx of refugees due to the war in Ukraine. And it's actually friends of mine who are educated, like, you know, university educated. And one time, my best friend, she's not alone in this, trust me. And she comes over and she says, you know, let's connect the dots. So there are all those, yeah, and like, you know, she says, so we have right now 2 million of Ukrainian refugees that are living and working in Poland for the last 2 years. And they are given the child benefits, free schools, not because of some biopolitical conspiracy, but simply because this is something that, like, you know, our government didn't support. However, she said, connect the dots, you know. After 5 years, they're going to get citizenship, and then they're going to go vote again for the government that gave them all this. Huh? So that is, you know, and to me, I understand if somebody just simply not educated and yeah, would go with that, but that's somebody who has a university degree. So,
but even if they are educated, you still don't know what's really going on. I don't know what's going on in the White House. So, like, even there,
Yeah, I just wanted to de-emphasize the conspiracy part of it, because it's only a conspiracy. It seems to me that we only call it a conspiracy if we don't think it's true, right? So it's an assumption, or it's a theory, or it's a conclusion that you've come to. So I just want to keep talking about this idea as an
idea,
as a hypothesis. It's a hypothesis, is what you said. Okay, so but Julie, you were going to say.
Yeah. So first thing, I think it's a really well done narrative, because it kind of makes sense at some point, you know, like even if you don't trust it, it can be true. Yeah. I think it's a well-done narrative, like well-structured, well-spread across the globe, and now across the country. Now because we have today ways to do it, and also we have kind of evidence that happened before, like the Spanish, when they came to America, they kind of replaced indigenous culture, and they just start with different motivations. I guess they were not thinking about voting, because that was another system. So why not? Why not believe in that? So I think it's a well-done narrative.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. I'm not saying that I believe it's truth, but I can see the potential of why people is believing in that, because it's well-structured. Another thing is, I mean, I'm thinking immediately back home, when not these past elections, but our former government uses the same structure, well done, well spread, and just motivated for elections. And they were saying that we will become Venezuela, because we had a lot of immigrants from Venezuela coming to Colombia, and they say, like, if you allow to come Venezuelans, they will become citizens, they will vote against, and then now that was like the right wing, and now we have the left wing in the government, and they were right. They said, like, okay, you see that right wing left is in Colombia because you allowed so much people to come here and vote with them, so now they have the chance to win the next elections because they're like they're becoming strong with that narrative. So I'm just seeing the potential of the narrative.
And your left-wing government now that's currently in power was not voted into power with the help of all of these Venezuelan refugees because they didn't vote, right?
They didn't vote.
But once they get the ability to vote, then you assume that they're all going to be on the left because they're from Venezuela, even though not everyone on the left in Venezuela is on the left, but the assumption is.
Yeah.
And so they will go in that direction. Okay.
And let me say this about, it's just like side comment about the left in Latin America. I think left is like 2 steps to the right.
Right.
It's not left at all.
Yeah.
The difference between fiction and reality.
Fiction and reality.
It's that fiction must make sense. So I think we have this need to make sense of the things that are seen in the world. As Camila's friend told, let's connect the dots.
Yeah.
In the lunchtime today, we were speaking about zodiac stuff, and for me, this is the same thing. Oh, look at the stars. Let's connect this. This is a tower. This is a bull. This is a Sagittarian. I don't know. So this is a PC, a fish. Come on, don't make sense. We are trying to connect dots that aren't actually connected. So as we are trying to figure out our reality, make sense of it, we have this need to believe in something, and it doesn't need to be something good for us.
Yeah.
It have just to be structural.
What makes you think that in this case this isn't true? I hear what you're saying about it doesn't have to, like reality doesn't have to fit all the dots. But what makes you think this hypothesis isn't true from what you see?
Because as I studied sociology and history along all those years, usually there isn't actually people on control of nothing. People usually take decisions based on something that individually makes sense, but as conspiracy theories, they need to have a sense on a global scale. Usually, it's pretty hard, this thing to actually you have this much people involved in something and hide it from everyone. Come on. It's, no, I heard that someone that was there and he told me that they met and they choose to do this. Who? Someone that have a blog in the internet, So I receive it in my WhatsApp. It's like that.
And there it is, yeah.
Huh?
Bassem, wait, he just held the conspiracy line strong. And I'm going to go back to the non-conspiracy line in a second. But Bassem, what do you see in Iraq? Like, you have so many refugees in Iraq. What are people saying?
Well, Sam, before I go to say what I have on my mind, I'm going to ask you a question. When do you think this idea of bringing immigrants to the States to affect the outcome of politics started?
From the very first arrivals from Europe to the United States.
And do you think it has increased in our time?
I think the impact, what has immigration, or you mean the
immigration?
Yeah, we're seeing more pressures, but the numbers of immigrants, like the numbers of refugees, let's say in the United States, we're really down on the list. We're way down on the list.
So when I came from Istanbul, there was about 50 people from Africa, and they were in groups. And when I arrived at Dulles Airport, there was the IOM waiting for them. IOM is the International Organization of Migration, and I thought that this group of immigration has stopped. I was really surprised to see 50 people being received in DC with the IOM. I was very surprised. So now let's...
And 50, it seems like a lot on a plane.
That's a lot of number on the plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was really surprised to see this number. So let's go back to Iraq. Iraq has seen migration in phases. In my lifetime, I can say it started in the 80s with the Iranian-Iraq war. For 8 years, so many people migrated to the United States, mainly. The second phase started in 1991, that's after Iraq invaded Kuwait. And the sanctions started, and when there was hardship and university professor salary would not be more than $10, $15 a month. So a lot of scholars left Iraq. And the third migration was after the invasion of Iraq in 2003. That's where we witnessed migration of scholars, Christians, and minority groups. First, the rich were able to leave Iraq. The poor went into the Kurdistan area. And the last and the worst migration was in 2014 when ISIS took over Mosul. Almost everybody who was able to leave Mosul, this will be internal migration, not external migration. So for Iraqis, it was so easy. A friend of mine who I'm visiting in 2 weeks, he left Iraq, and in 3 months he was able to get immigration status in the United States. So it was so easy in the 90s to get immigration. Now it's not easy, it's difficult now. But I think it was facilitated for a certain amount group of Iraqis to come to the United States. So easy.
Certain groups. Right?
Certain groups.
Which is usually what happens, by the way. Like you said, here we had an airplane full of Africans, right? 50 Africans from, I'm assuming, sub-Saharan Africa, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they probably were... It took many years or a long time to process them, and then they became a single group and came together. So it seems like a lot, but in Iraq, you have a lot of refugees in Iraq currently because of the war and with Syria and
yeah.
Do Iraqis say a similar kind of thing as this? Like, are Iraqis really trying to find a way to understand these refugees?
Well, we don't like to call them refugees, but the Syrians who left Syria went into Turkey. Now Turkey, they kick them out. So every Syrian who was in Turkey and who cannot return back to Syria is now in Iraq. They are refugees. They cannot find a job. They are living bad living situations, and we really hate to call them refugees, but they are refugees.
And do Iraqis speak? What percentage of Iraqis that you know, that you're aware, really don't want them? Like, really?
Well, I will tell you who doesn't want them. The young who are losing their jobs because of the Syrians taking over the job. Because the Syrian would say work for $200 a month, while an Iraqi would not work for less than $500 a month. So the Iraqi youth are not happy with them in Iraq.
So the conflict, this refugee conflict, is not just something here. This is what I really want to point out to people. This trying to understand, trying to balance immigration and the change and what is happening on a global perspective is not something that we are struggling with here in the United States. It's something that people are trying to manage all over the world.
You're familiar with where I am in Erbil, which is called Kurdistan. So lived by the Kurdish people. And Kurdistan, their dream of having a country. So Iraq being South Kurdistan, Syria being West Kurdistan, Turkey being North Kurdistan, and the Kurds in Iran are considered east of Kurdistan. So the Kurds, they want these people in to increase the number of Kurds people in Iraq to affect policies.
How do we know that's not a conspiracy theory?
I don't know.
But how would we know? How would we know? I mean, you don't have to answer, but how would we know if what Bassem just said, right? How would we know if it was a conspiracy, or why aren't we suggesting that it's a conspiracy?
Yeah, how do you
Igor,
know?
you're like,
Well,
No, because he said that that's something that they want.
right.
Oh, they want this because they're wanting something. Okay, that's not to be a conspiracy theory. You have to be there has to be organization, reachable goal that makes sense in the part of it. Because it's just wishful thinking. We wish that we could do that. For me, because I don't get it as a conspiracy theory actually.
Because say that again. I didn't.
I don't see it as the way they put it as a conspiracy theory. Okay.
Well, a week ago, just before I came, they discovered that about 300,000 Syrian Kurds have been given fake IDs so that they can be able to participate in elections in north of Iraq. So that is conspiracy.
Okay.
They
And
discovered
who gave them
them.
the fake IDs?
Must be the local government.
Yeah. So like, hey, we'll give you the fake IDs and you vote for us.
Yeah. It was in the news. Being right or wrong, I don't know, but it was in the news.
So, okay, yeah.
Because I just remember a documentary that I saw a long time ago. I think about 3-4 years ago. It's called Wild Wild Country. It's about a group of here in United States. I don't remember which state it was, but a guru, an Indian guru, came here and he bought a piece of land, and people showed up there to be there. So it started to have some problems with the locals.
Yeah.
And it would be holding an election, and what they organized it was to go to some big cities that have homeless and put them in buses and bring to this place for them and register them to vote for them. So this case, it's it was recorded.
Yeah.
It actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if any of you have watched this
No,
documentary.
there was this guy. his
Wild
name
Wild
was
Country.
Rajneesh. Yeah.